and we are going to be opening up with the Canadian versus the Spaniard. And we still have two Spanish boys in here, which is pretty cool to see when you consider this whole event is going to be finishing off in Spain. Talk me through these two players a little bit, Crackety. You know, PuppyPaw versus LucifroN, I'd say they have fairly different playstyles.
Yeah, PuppyPaw, I would say usually like he plays a little bit more defensively, a little bit more boomy, kind of a playstyle. LucifroN, very similar to his brother, very, very aggressive player, but still has like that little bit of macro. I would say he has got the definite like macro edge over Vortex, over his brother there. So definitely still an aggressive player, but doesn't shy away from the later stages of the game as well. And we can see here, like overall, the skill distribution here between these players definitely favoring aggression on the side of LucifroN. PuppyPaw, he doesn't mind the late game. He doesn't mind the early aggression as well. He's very balanced overall.
Most definitely. And I think he's really started to shine through in that early game, which is funnily enough how he got started, Voldemort. I remember PuppyPaw in his infancy when he was just a filthy outpost rusher like many of us were. And he kind of perfected that 10, 15 minutes. I found PuppyPaw's approach to RTSs and mastering them quite intriguing, right? Because he seems to segment them and educate himself on them, where other people are just trying to play the very long games and figure out tidbits here and there.
Absolutely. PuppyPaw is also a player that we have seen rise a lot recently. And I would say, together with LucifroN, they're two super skilled players that have been in AoE4 for a while, but they're also seeing greater and greater success now. And what I find really interesting about PuppyPaw and LucifroN going up against each other is they're not the same player. They might be very aware of what the meta is, but LucifroN is known for his high aggressiveness, and I'm curious to see how that will play into someone like PuppyPaw, who is pretty good at these longer games.
And it's going to be interesting to see because so far, PuppyPaw has not lost once to LucifroN this year. An incredible feat. But at the end of the day, historically, they are sitting at a neck and neck 50-game split between each other. LucifroN having the lead in series at 58%. But basically, game one here is going to dictate who is actually leading the pack when it comes to game victories. And I think we're ready to kick off. We're going to be opening up into Dry Arabia. Upper bracket, so no elimination on the line here. But you want to keep that padding. So let's see who's going to get off to an early start here. LucifroN with the Roos and PuppyPaw with the Ibits.
Here we go. PuppyPaw with the Ibits in the color red coming in. LucifroN already with the triple scouts out. PuppyPaw only on a single one, so no additional scout coming out from him early on.
Certainly a little bit of a curious beginning here for the Ayuba player PuppyPaw. Getting a nice double deer pack in his base is certainly going to help him when it comes to denying bounty, but when it comes to the wolves and just in general, playing against these three scouts is going to be a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, looking at it so far at the scout pathing, having that double deer pack early on means that PuppyPaw doesn't even need that second scout. He's already denied a lot of the potential bounty here. Ayubit also aren't too dependent on the sheep spawn early on. So overall, looking like a pretty decent starter for PuppyPaw, not needing to opt into that second scout, not getting that delay that comes with that.
It's quite interesting. You can speculate about why it is that he does only go for one scout. You might consider timings. Let's say, okay, he still wants to get that greater feudal age timing, might want to go into Desert Raiders. And we have this nerf we had recently where it's now 15 seconds. And that means also getting the second scout, this Desert Raider will come out 30 seconds later, maybe, or something like that in relation to what we've seen in the previous patch.
Yeah, getting the early Desert Raiders in still, it's such a... Sure, it's 15 seconds later in, but it's such a nice feature to have, I want to say, because what you can do essentially with that secondary, with that early military unit is you can kind of like decide where your opponent is able to place their second TC. We're seeing Roos here, and Roos are famous for their 2 TC kind of play very early on in the game, very defensive. They get the Kremlin, so they have a landmark which is very optimal for that. Actually, looking at the Kremlin placement here from LucifroN, that's a little bit peculiar. It's quite close to his TC. It's not usually it's not really protecting anything there.
I've definitely seen this before from LucifroN placing these very conservative Kremlins. Maybe it has something to do with an oncoming timing from the Ayubit player, this typical all-in that we see from them, that he sort of wants to deny that, but it also might not be super clear for Puppy what it is that LucifroN actually wants to go for right off the get-go. We often see the Kremlin being placed either on the gold or on the stone, signaling either a second TC or aggression/fast castle play. That's not quite clear here, so it's kind of curious to see what this is all about.
Yeah, I mean, the Kremlin is kind of like in range of both the stone and the gold there.
I
So
guess it is.
the issue is that the Desert Raider, it's also range, right? So I'm not sure how I feel about this. Like, this doesn't really protect him from the Desert Raider at all early on.
I'm under the impression that the Kremlin is not going to be able to defend against something ranged like a Distant Raider. But perhaps that will be solved through either creating horsemen or archers for defensive play. But let's see, if it's an aggression play, that's not even going to be relevant because he will try to get control early. And we already see here the gold villages are being put, and that does mean that we're not going to see the second TC right off the bat.
Yeah, no second TC. So the question's gonna be: is it gonna be just a fast castle age, or might LucifroN actually like maybe commit a little bit to the feudal age here? He's got a lot of villagers going over to wood now, so kind of makes me think that we will probably see some production buildings coming in rather soon. So maybe like a feudal age all in could potentially come in.
Very well could be. I'm looking at these sort of macro splits that they have going currently. It looks like Paul really just wants to go for this more fast castle style, whereas LucifroN, it's a little bit unclear. I'm not quite sure what he spent his wood on just before. We know that he has wheelbarrow, and we know that he is macroing towards a little bit of food and gold, now getting that wood. So potentially going to be some aggression play. Scout's going to come in here, and it's going to be a little bit of a headache here for Poppy, having to pull some extra vills. Does delay him a little bit, but again, it's another signal that we are going to see fast castle play. So whatever LucifroN decides to do here we can see the stable in yacht range, signaling the aggression, might come in a little bit too late, in my opinion. What do you think?
I mean, there's always the potential of starving the Ayubit player out as they go up to the next age. Oh, but there we go, Desert Raider. If he goes into his range formation, is going to be able to easily deny the villagers off of gold there until at least the first couple of units come in from LucifroN. There we go. Is there... Okay, LucifroN does react, and the Knight is coming out now to meet the Desert Raider.
Knight does come out here. Still a little bit of an annoying delay. He gets some of his villagers down to a little bit low health here, and that can be an annoyance later on when we start seeing raids and so on. The idle time as well does play a significant role because it limits the amount of upgrades and knights that LucifroN can get out early.
Close.
That was a very close villager right there. Knight not going to be able to quite catch up to the Desert Raider either, that they do share a similar movement speed as well. I believe it's the same, no?
Yeah, it's the same movement speed. The charge, though, does make a slight difference there. Actually, charge getting cancelled there. Oh, and that's not a favorable engagement for that Knight. You're not able to heal them up unlike the French, so definitely hurts that he's taking some damage there. Archer's also coming out for him. PuppyPaw, though, getting very close to clicking on the age up. Only a little bit of food remaining for that. There we go. Age up now going to be coming in. It's going to be economic growth. Slight nerf on that, only 7 now instead of 8 villagers, but still a major economic bonus for them.
It's a major economic bonus. It will give him that tempo that he needs to get this game opened up properly. So now here in the early game, it's sort of like, okay, how much value can you get out of your free units through the Desert Raiders? But ideally, you're just covering for a play like this, and that is, in essence, what the Ayubis want to do. They want to gain that tempo lead so that they can execute a strategy like this where something like 7 villages can be a nice boost to whatever it is PuppyPaw wants to do, whether that's second town center, if it's a full aggression play, or something third.
Yeah, now some agency that the Roos do get here, and we do actually see siege engineering coming in as well, is that they definitely can stick it out in the feudal age. They do have access to those early knights, with which they're going to be able to deal with camel lancers or even golems should that come into play. Oh, villager actually getting sniped there by the Desert Raider. Good pick off there by PuppyPaw. That Desert Raider is just giving him so much value here throughout this game. But now the first ram is going to be on its way, and PuppyPaw, he's going to have to try and get as much gold now as possible, because he's not going to be on gold for long.
It's going to be a little bit of a late ram here, coming out at 8 minutes. He has been delayed quite a lot. Not a lot of archers constructing this ram either. He's going to look to push this tower, but I'm not sure if he has enough time to really generate that value that he wants out of this ram, since PuppyPaw is almost at the next age.
Yeah, no real production buildings yet, though. PuppyPaw just now put up the first stable, but if you're getting like 1 to 2 camel lances out, it's not going to be too great against the already 4 knights out from LucifroN, especially if you can get like 1 or 2 more out.
Desert Raiders coming in.
Also no blacksmith yet from PuppyPaw, so these units that he's getting out, the feudal age units from LucifroN are still going to be able to do a lot of damage to them, especially since Pierce Art damage should be coming in after the currently queued Pierce Armor upgrade.
Yeah, it's kind of curious that he decides to go for the +1 ranged armor here in this situation. It's good to go under the towers and the TCs for sure if you want to look for damage that way. But going up against something like Camel Lancers, you definitely need the +1 for your archers to even be effective, because 2 knights, I don't think that'll cut it.
Yeah, should be coming in soon. Actually, not in queue. Yeah, there we go. Now it's going to be in queue. 4 Camel Lancers already in queue for PuppyPaw behind this.
Substantial
Now
force.
also some spearmen coming in.
Some spearmen does come in. It's a sizable army build-up for LucifroN, but again, it could have been larger, I would say. It's going to be tough for him to really do something about this Camel Lancer spam, as the Camel Lancers will be able to deal with both the archers and the knights, and of course the ram as well. And so being able to contest this, I'm not sure that's really a possibility. We'll have to see, though.
I think it's looking quite possible still here at this point in time. Camel Lancer number are building, but still without any blacksmith upgrades, and the blacksmith upgrade for LucifroN is just around the corner. So these archers are going to do 2 damage with every attack, just rather than just 1. All right, fight coming in. +1 finishing up right now as well. Camel Lancers. Oh, archers being left alone. There we go, clash happening now, and now this is going to be the turning point here. If PuppyPaw is able to win this match, this fight here, he's going to be in a great position, but LucifroN able to force PuppyPaw back for the time being there. Behind this, he went back to gold. He's going to have to go away again. That's massive idle time on those villagers now.
It certainly will be good for him if he wins this match, but we'll have to see with these Camel Lancers, though. They are definitely a very strong unit, but up against these archers that now do have this +1, we can see that they take a pretty good amount of damage, though they still hold up well against the knights. Where are the spearmen, though? LucifroN does have 4 spearmen out. He needs them in this fight quite quickly, otherwise this ram's going to go down and he's going to lose too many units, and the build-up will therefore not be enough.
Tries to get some villager kills here. 1 or 2 villagers will go down, but still, there's a significant gap between these 2 players economically right now due to that economic ring growth. And LucifroN, yeah, the spearmen, I guess they were just trying to defend the relics. This one relic, though, looks like it might be going over. At least it's going to be in TC range now.
It's 1 safe relic for PuppyPaw so far, and a pretty small army for LucifroN. Doesn't look like he's going to be anytime soon going for that Castle Age. Got a little bit of extra wood float ready here. Looks like he might be going into multiple production buildings, but it's a tough situation to be in because now the archer buildup is coming, which means these early spearmen, because there's not too many of them, are easily denied, and their effect here in these fights is going to be minimal. And I do say that as they do get some good hits here on the Camel Lancer, and the archers do go down. So a little bit of a mistake there for PuppyPaw.
Yeah, and LucifroN's doing a great job of just denying PuppyPaw that gold time and time again. The villagers are getting pulled back once more, and now without the gold, PuppyPaw, he's going to struggle when it comes to making more and more of these Camel Lancers, and especially when it comes to being able to upgrade these archers, because right now, these are still feudal age archers, worse even, they don't have the blacksmith upgrades.
The question is, when do the upgrades become relevant here in this scenario? You are up against a feudal age opponent, you're just looking for that bonus damage, and there's not a lot of archers out anyways. The Camel Lancers will deal with the knights. But yeah, once the upgrades do come through, we will start to see that technology advantage from being in the Castle Age become a lot more apparent, and that's going to matter in the long run.
Yeah. Oh my god, PuppyPaw. Yeah, these outposts are definitely needed. Double outpost now going up, securing the food that he needs, because he's struggling for food right now. Only 4 food left in the bank. And these relics that are coming in as well are going to be crucial to just providing him with that small trickle of gold that he's unable to get right now, with his villagers on gold being denied the entire time. Even having the, finding the time or the presence of mind to, send a single camp, it's granted it's going to die, but, having the presence of mind of sending that unit out there to do damage to your opponent as well, that's just absolutely great from PuppyPaw. And we can see that he's killed 2 workers as well, so damage done there indeed.
For sure, and it's again, it's one of those things when you're playing against a player like LucifroN, who's got that micro in check. He's, almost considered one of the best when it comes to this aggressive and very micro controlled type of thing. finding that time and space to do so is definitely a really good thing, because it is what can help you out in these situations when you raid under pressure, and you can sort of force your opponents to spare some units and keep them back in the defense here. But the defense is definitely not what we're seeing here. We're going to have to look at 2 ramps now. Going to contest this full food left side here of PuppyPaw, and that does matter quite a lot, because if this left side does get denied for PuppyPaw, he's going to be out of food, and there is not going to be a way that he can be able to produce enough units should he get this side denied.
Veterancy upgrade for the archers, though, is finally coming in, and PuppyPaw, he's up to 17 archers, has a lot more archers now than even LucifroN does, and with the double outpost, I feel like this next fight should probably go in PuppyPaw's favor. Not going to be able to snipe a villager there, unfortunately. Spearman is going to mean that that Camel Lancer is going to have to go away for the time being. And this push, yeah, I feel like PuppyPaw with the veterancy upgrade has enough here. Those knights, they're gonna feel like paper compared to, like, granted, he still doesn't have the blacksmith upgrades, but 7 damage on these archers now is still more than a feudal age archer with full blacksmith upgrades would have.
Yeah, it's a sizable army for sure for LucifroN, but the question is the composition. Is it enough here to deal with this? A lot of spearmen, but not a lot of archers, and so contesting something like this from PuppyPaw, a fully upgraded, or not fully upgraded, but veteran archer mass, is very tough. He does get 1 tower down, and the second tower is about to go down as well. Denying the food here is crucial, but look at his army, it's almost gone.
Yeah, Archer is hiding in the ram, though. And with a mostly Archer-focused composition here, means that PuppyPaw isn't able to immediately deal with that. And a lot of villagers did go down here on PuppyPaw's side, so the eco gap, it closed up quite a bit here. Knights are coming as well, but yeah, with the veterancy upgrade, they still take just so much damage here. Eco count now pretty much equal, but LucifroN still behind in tech.
He's behind in tech, and now the knights are down. PuppyPaw doesn't really need his lancers at this moment, so not having a lancer build-up is fine, as long as you've got these archers going for you. And he does, and he's going to find the damage. He gets a little bit of utility still out of his cavalry mass here, now that the spearmen have been wiped. So pretty good micro coming out from PuppyPaw, which is crucial in these situations.
Yeah, PuppyPaw has been starved of food for such a long time. Thankfully, these archers don't really need a lot of food to be produced, and now a second TC even coming in from PuppyPaw here, securing himself that food even further, and now with the military from LucifroN pretty much out the picture here for the time being. Yeah, this is going to be really tough for him to come back in this one, because now PuppyPaw, he's got the military advantage, he's got the tech advantage, economy still pretty much even, and PuppyPaw in this situation, the game's pretty much open for him.
Yeah, it's open for him. He's got the second TC acting as a sort of victory condition up against LucifroN's Roost here. He's still in 1 TC, still in Feudal Age, and has been able to do some damage, found about 11 villager kills here against PuppyPaw's 2 villager kills. So still, it's an okay situation for LucifroN. He still has time, but ultimately, in the long run, it's going to be a lot better for PuppyPaw. So if he can extend the game, draw it out, make it a little slower, and therefore dictate the pace that way, he will end up winning this game.
I'm not even sure if LucifroN has any time left. He's still reinvesting into the knight play, but now +1 pierce damage is coming in for PuppyPaw. Those archers will now do 4 damage with every single shot, and with the amount of archers that he has, he's going to be able to pretty much like 2-shot, 3-shot these knights, and yeah, at this point in time, I feel like all timings are out the window for LucifroN. This game looks firmly in the hands of PuppyPaw now. Knights are charging in, but these are expensive losses kiting coming in from PuppyPaw. Yeah, and you can just tell how quickly these knights go down.
The knights go down pretty quickly as well. Still, archers up against archers. Feudal archers can still be relevant here, but the mass is just not there. A couple more knights coming in here, and that will create some space between them. But ultimately, if you take a look at the top side of the graph, we know that it's a twice as much army size. It's 2 town centers. It's an age difference as well. It's not looking great for LucifroN.
Yeah,
that too.
+2 pierce damage, now in queue as well. I feel like once that comes in, like, LucifroN, he's not going to go Castle Age this game. Castle Age is definitely off the menu. The external food sources are pretty much all dried up now as well. LucifroN sending a lot of villagers over to the berries now. Berries, though, aren't that excellent of a food source. They gather very, very slowly. Once again, knights getting picked off here. These aren't losses that LucifroN can afford, and at this point in the game, it's pretty safe to call that PuppyPaw is going to be able to start this set off with a good lead here after this one. I bet just the Castle Age timing. LucifroN wasn't quite able to punish that, and yeah, it's 0 food per minute for him right now. There is no way out of this one for him. PuppyPaw, it's just going to be a question of time now for him to finish this game off.
You have to wonder, what is it that keeps LucifroN in this game? What is it that he sees? And currently, I'm not sure if he's fully aware of the second town center. He might have seen it during one of his raids, but if it is just this apparent threat in front of his base, dealing with that is, in his vision, probably the only thing that he's sort of thinking of right now. But this victory condition behind, we have the God vision. We have to remember, we see everything. He might not, and that does matter here. Militia does get pulled
That's
as well.
the 5th relic.
That's the 5th relic as well, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
tough one now.
Yeah, +2 pierce damage is now in as well. Now you can pretty much two-shot the knights. Like, these knights go down really, really rapidly. Doesn't even feel the need to micro anymore at this point in time.
Yeah, the +2 ranged attack does so well against Feudal Age Knights. It's like the armored unit attack sort of almost gets removed from them once this upgrades comes through. And it's sort of like weird as well, because archers are considered just like a light unit, not a counter unit. It just goes to show you how important these blacksmith upgrades are. And in a long game like this, long Feudal Age like this, it becomes worse and worse for you.
I think this fight kind of like should settle it in now, because LucifroN, yeah, he's losing all his military. The knights are going down, right? Like, PuppyPaw's just in his base, on his production building, sniping out every single unit that comes out, and GG gets called. PuppyPaw able to take the lead here in a very, very important set against LucifroN.
That's a very interesting opener here. LucifroN coming in with a lot of aggression, trying to find that lockdown on him with his fast castle play. Couldn't quite get there. I'm not quite sure why it was. Maybe it was the composition, but I feel like, was he able to deny the left side of PuppyPaw's base? It would have been looking pretty good for him, but he simply wasn't.
I think he kind of like undercommitted when it came to the archer play, like getting that really, really big archer ball going. That's just so important in these type of games. We can look at the income here overall, like food, wood, gold. It's still very, very similar between them. But then you have that early tech advantage from PuppyPaw, and all just kind of builds on there. After that, the fights are suddenly like the trade-offs between the units. They're getting worse and worse for LucifroN there as the games go on. Yeah, with that, PuppyPaw able to take a victory in game number 1. Looking over at game number 2, though, we've got an interesting one. We're going to be looking at Holy Island, with PuppyPaw playing as the Japanese and LucifroN playing as the Chinese. And these kind of water maps with Holy Island, when there are like 2 players that I want to say like are the absolute favorite on these water maps, I always have to think of the Spanish brothers. But who comes right after that? It's the Canadian brothers, because they also shine on these water maps, on this like kind of like split attention gameplay, when you have to pay attention on water and land at the same time.
Absolutely, and that's also why we see them often in this end of the bracket, where we often have players that are just phenomenal at that split attention. It's kind of interesting that he does go for that Japanese pick here on the Holy Island, because he does have Chinese and English, and it just leaves you to wonder, what was he expecting out of LucifroN? Is there something in this matchup with the Japanese up against the Chinese that he finds favorable? I'm not quite sure. What do you think?
To be fair, just looking at it, there aren't really any greater spots or greater maps to pick Japanese on, I would say. Like, where else would you play Japanese? You're probably not going to want to play them on a land map like Frisian Marshes or Socotra. Golden Heights, there's always the potential of your opponent picking Mongols into you. And Japanese, they don't really do too well on water maps against Mongols, mainly because they don't have the necessary Civ bonuses to deal with early mass spearman aggression.
Absolutely. It's a quite interesting draft looking at it, because I feel like many of the picks can be kind of obvious. The Japanese one here, I feel like, isn't, simply because of the expected matchup, but looking at Frisian Marshes, Golden Heights, Socotra, it's interesting dynamics for sure.
Yeah. I think it's just no real better option here for Japanese. And Japanese, they're still really great on Holy Island. As long as the game stays in like maximum castle age, Japan is like a really top civ for that. And we're going to be looking at... I thought we're getting into the next game. I know we're going to take a quick look once again at our player review, but there we go. Next game, right around the corner now. LucifroN versus PuppyPaw, game number 2 in our best of 5 here. Holy Island, both players, as is tradition, you might want to say, going out to water there.
It is Holy Island, curious game, a curious map, and it's one of those maps that we consider being one of those that require the highest skill. It's so difficult to play this map because you need to split your attention from playing both land and water, and you have to balance your timings. Do you go castle? Do you stick to the water play? And what is your opponent doing? It's one of those really difficult maps to play, and so this is going to be very interesting. Looking at their dock placements already, it's sort of already painting a picture of how this is actually going to go, because we see the forward dock, semi-forward dock from the Chinese is more vulnerable to shinobis, whereas the back dock from PuppyPaw might signal in general a more laid-back defensive style. He might not be looking for that aggressive play.
This is actually a very interesting spawn here for LucifroN. You can see he made the dock forward, but that's only because he had a scout there. With the Tang Dynasty, he actually was able to see that deep sea fishing from the shoreline, which I think like kind of dictate the decision on where you're going to place your dock. Because when you look at it, there's still like a lot of deep sea fish further back. So that's, I think, where a second dock will likely be coming in, which you're going to need. You're playing up against Japan with the Shinobis, right? And Shinobis did get a buff recently. You definitely are going to need a second dock in order to get a ship out before the Shinobi sabotage comes in.
Absolutely, and that Shinobi sabotage will be crucial here in the early stage of the game, because it can be detrimental to you to have a Shinobi come and delay your ships coming out of your docks, because those early fights are so important. Once we get into a little bit of a longer game, however, it's a different dynamic with the Shinobis and the docks, because often you'll have ships defending the docks, and so the Shinobi often shift, going over to the base instead looking to deny something like gold or potential production buildings.
I'm looking at the amount of villagers PuppyPaw has on wood right now, 12 villagers. That's not usually an amount of villagers that you need on wood as Japanese, just because your fishing ships are that cheap. And what this makes me think is that he's going to play this in a little bit of a, I want to call this like magic style, where he makes an absolutely absurd, ludicrous amount of fishing ships with the Japanese really early on. And yeah, it looks like that's going to be it. Second dock now coming in already for PuppyPaw. We're going to see a huge explosion of water when it comes to his economy there.
Yeah, and you got to be curious, because why would he need to have up towards 13 on wood when his ships are so much cheaper? He's looking for that greater boom, perhaps. But what is his timing going to be like when the Chinese player is going to be up?
That's the thing, right? Like, there's always that looming threat of the Shinobi coming in. And that kind of threat can also be used to kind of like make your opponent overinvest in other things. But now PuppyPaw did pull a lot of villagers over to food. So age up should be coming in sooner rather than later for villagers over on gold. So he's definitely going to invest a lot into that now. Actually, he's lacking a little bit of gold. Looks like he might have gone for the early Japanese tier 1 wheelbarrow upgrade.
He might have gone for this very greedy approach, which you outlined perfectly. It's a really nice and smart play to pull here, because your opponent will be expecting the early Shinobi timing, but if you don't go for it, they're going to be short on fishing boats. You're going to be up on fishing boats, however, and then you're in a very favorable position if you can maintain that and not be pushed early.
Yeah, exactly. That's a lot of fishing ships already out there now for PuppyPaw. LucifroN, he's kind of compensating for that with a couple of villagers gathering right now on the sheep under his TC. An age-up should be coming in a little bit earlier for LucifroN. Question's gonna be if he can really like gain on that, like if he can really use that to his advantage here. Girl Academy is gonna be the choice from him. 5 villagers on that, so that age-up is gonna be coming in quite quickly. And Coca Township should be coming in from PuppyPaw any moment now. There it is. Also 5 villagers. So age-up definitely should be coming in quite a bit earlier from LucifroN as the Chinese. He's going to be building that landmark quite a bit faster.
Yeah, and you got to put yourself in LucifroN's shoes here. He will understand that the timing for the Japanese is typically around, well, this exact minute. Around 5 minutes is typically when the Japanese players get up. They will have their Shinobis going, but PuppyPaw is not going to have that. And so for LucifroN, that means that he will probably get his read and then figure, okay, this is going to be a little bit of a different game early on.
No second dock yet from LucifroN. I would just imagine that a villager should move out rather soon to that in order to build that. No movement yet, though, so I'm a little bit confused on when he wants to build that second dock, or if he actually just wants to stick on single dock. Single dock kind of makes me feel like he's already given up water. Okay, never mind. There's the villager moving out now to build a dock.
Galley comes out here, and that's going to look for some aggression. His opponent is not even up, and we're almost 6 minutes in. This is actually unheard of, I would even say. We never see this.
Early stable coming in as well. LucifroN also got scout in his opponent's space, so he's going to be aware of the movement there. Look at the amount of fishing ships that we got there already. That's a good couple.
It's a good amount of fishing ships for sure. If you look at the eco count, however, it is very similar, which leads me to think...
That is very peculiar, just how similar it is.
Yeah, Galley does come in here, finds one fishing boat damage, and PuppyPaw is stuck creating an archer ship, so contesting this early Galley is going to be an issue for him because he won't have that bonus damage from the Springle ship.
Yeah, Galley is going to be able to deal with it fine, though, just because the Galley from LucifroN does not have any repair nearby. It's going to be fine there. I mean, there's already like 2 horsemen coming. I'm not sure. This play doesn't really make a lot of sense to me with the horsemen, for the main reason that PuppyPaw is already like actively investing into the Shinobi, and Shinobi absolutely shred horsemen.
The horsemen will go down quickly to the Shinobi. The question is, the horsemen and the Shinobi...
An outpost rush.
This outpost rush will be a problem for LucifroN, considering what you just said, with the horsemen not being able to deal with the Shinobi so well. So if he gets his front woodline here denied, that's also him having to idle out his villagers, put it to the top side of the woodline. If a second tower comes around, he's going to have to invest more into land military, potentially giving PuppyPaw an opening to go for this more water style. And that can be what closes out water.
Yeah. LucifroN able to idle out a couple of villagers there from PuppyPaw on the gold. Might actually be able to kill a Shinobi there just with the superior mobility of these horsemen. Yeah, he's going to be able to pick off a Shinobi there, so that's good value. LucifroN now speed building that archer range. I think he might have just finally noticed, oh wait, there's an outpost going up right next to my woodline. And PuppyPaw has the passive stone income in order to be able to get the emplacement on that outpost.
The emplacements will be very important here for PuppyPaw having to deal now with archers, but it's also a really difficult position from LucifroN. He might have the means to do something on water, but he doesn't want to commit to it currently because there's this very big threat on his doorstep currently from the Shinobi. His horsemen won't be able to deal with it. He'll have to commit to archers. And now that he's pushed onto the back wood line in his base, this is not a safe area for him. He needs those units out quickly, or the villagers have to bring out the shifts.
Yeah, the shifts do come out, but a lot of villagers just did go down there. That's going to be another outpost now coming in for PuppyPaw around the woodline. LucifroN, at least, he did completely migrate over to the woodline in the back. But this gives a lot of map vision over to PuppyPaw and just a lot of map control as well. So he's looking really good. Just a good play behind that from LucifroN as well. He did invest a lot into the fishing ships behind that. So the economy, even though he did lose a villager more, is still looking in favor of LucifroN actually here.
It's that typical Chinese economy here coming through. He's got the tax, he's got the 20% extra drop-off, which
bonus
is a
Imperial
resource.
Academy.
Yeah, Imperial Academy as well, providing double the tax from research and drop-offs. So it is a good amount of resource extra that he does get provided here, playing just as the Chinese, but the Japanese as well, being able to also have those discounts from the ships and just in general, those nice Castle Age timings. It's an interesting matchup, and I think LucifroN is able to keep up here. Curious what he's looking to do here.
Horsemen are now also being added in by PuppyPaw. Boar has been pulled by LucifroN, but does turn on the person that pulled it. Yeah, Archer's also going down here. LucifroN losing a lot of his military on land now.
Certainly an annoying boar coming in with a good amount of damage here. Looking out to the water side of things, looks like the ship mass have built up, and a lot of demos coming up from LucifroN can be very, very lethal up against a four-springled fleet like this. 3 archer ships, however, for PuppyPaw will be able to deal with that quite nicely, and with some good micro, those 5 springle ships can also one-shot the demos. So if LucifroN invests too much into demos, he might not have enough fleets to even be able to contest once the demos are gone.
Yeah, it's a pretty big disadvantage on water when you don't have formations for ships. So, takes out Imperial Official. If you don't have formation for ships, you're going to have to actively micro your demo ships in order to not have them all get taken down by like the AoE damage from the archer ships. It's going to be quite difficult to just go all in demo.
Yeah, all-in demo is usually not something we see during the middle part of the water fight. It's something that can be very beneficial to go for demos early on when you are getting maybe an early timing from getting up earlier. And it's something you will see later on in the water gameplay where you've pushed your opponent to their side of the pond. Now you can actually use the advantage from them not having any more water to go and fall back on. Now you're pushing them with demos and forcing the game, right? So in this situation, if you can't find the damage with the demos, then the fleet will ultimately be better for Puppy if there's not enough connections.
The amount of like crazy back and forth here between these players on land and water, it's absolutely insane. And now LucifroN sending his demo ships around. Will PuppyPaw realize in time? Oh my god, he doesn't know. He didn't see it. He didn't see it. Only sees it now. Demo ship. One gets a connection in. Only one demo ship got a connection. A lot of the archer ships did get taken down though.
But what is that? That's 2 archer ships and then like 6 demos or something?
It's
Didn't
definitely
find the value that they needed to, for sure.
It definitely didn't feel too great there. Behind this, though, PuppyPaw also just expanding on his like kind of outpost network. Now building himself a nice little proxy camp there with a lumber camp. So you know he's gonna get some resource in there on the side. That's a lot of villagers on gold right now from PuppyPaw as well. Makes me think that maybe he wants to like either commit to demo ships or probably more thinking of like going for an age up behind this, like get some techs in, get the age up behind it as well. Just food is kind of lacking for him right now, like a lot.
Food is definitely lacking for him. It is that problem with Holy Island that you're not really gonna be able to really scale that food income as much simply because of the pawn placements. A little bit more of a naval fight coming in through here. You are correct. I believe that the demo production is in full swing for both of them. LucifroN up at almost 10 demos is going to be lethal.
This reminds me of the archipelago games that we saw in Master of Realms, but now LucifroN looks like he wants to push the issue. It's got a lot of very weak Springle ships here. Pretty much just 1 or 2 hits away. And now the demo mass. It's getting blocked by his own ship, so not able to really find the connections here right now that he needs.
Certainly unfortunate.
Oh, only 1 archer ship.
1 archer ship is definitely not enough, having to deal with these these demos. 6 demos now coming in here, and that's going to be a problem. Could potentially take them out here with his own demos. Does actually not take as much damage.
Yeah. A lot of explosions going down there, and still these Springle ships, they're very low health, but there's the reinforcements, more demo ships coming in. And PuppyPaw, he doesn't have enough Springles now to one-shot these. Use his own demo ship. Demo ship on the fishing as well.
And this is where we start to see this more permanent damage come through. Once the demos hit the fishing ships, you lose your scalability, you lose your economy. It's like losing villages, essentially. And so that can be a pretty big deal here during these water fights. If you're not going to find Springles, you might as well go for the fishing boats.
Yeah. Right now, though, like PuppyPaw, it's not that bad that he loses some fishing ships, mainly because they're very cheap for the Japanese. So, of course, that doesn't matter too much. But LucifroN, the amount of demo ships that this man is making is absolutely absurd. Like, he hasn't been making like a Springled or an archer ship in like the last 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I want to say. And behind that, his economy also seems primed to go up to Castle Age. If he just stops like production of these demo ships for half a minute, he's gonna be there.
And that's just so typical for LucifroN and Vortex, known for being super committed to this demo play, whilst they could, you know, after just 10-15 seconds of not producing demos, go to Castle Age. And that is just their style here on Water, and they are actually super scary just because of that. If you pay attention to the bottom, you can see LucifroN was able to sneak in a few demos. Again, this is what they do. They're able to massively use these demo ships. And so if they do find those big connections, it can be game over in a split second.
Oh, PuppyPaw with the awareness, though, sends a single archer ship around the side there. Wants to make sure there's no hidden fleet from LucifroN there. Indeed, does manage to find the hidden fleet. And now LucifroN, he wants to find some damage quickly with those demo ships, and he might be able to find some of these fishing ships there. PuppyPaw splitting all of them up. This might just be an explosion on the docks. Actually, gets 3 fishing ships. Not the best trade, considering it's 3 demo ships to 3 fishing ships, 3 Japanese fishing ships. It's a trade-off nonetheless. Better than not getting any value out of them at all.
We do now
These demo
see
ships were dead anyways.
The demo ships were dead anyway, so finding a little bit of damage does matter. Now we see the Imperial Palace coming through from LucifroN. What do you make of Imperial Palace in this situation? Surely Siege could also have an impact?
Definitely, definitely. But the Imperial Palace in these kind of like mostly water-dependent games early on, just especially with the buff that we got there with the Imperial Palace, it just provides you with so much line of sight at this point in the game. Just telling you where all the villagers are, and you do have a little bit of land mass. You can also just invest into a couple of knights now at this point in time. Definitely is the option there. Armored Hull now, we're getting all the water upgrades. PuppyPaw hasn't clicked up yet to the next age, and I'm a little bit scared for him because behind this, LucifroN, he did reinvest a little bit into his own Springle fleet as well. So now it's going to be a lot of Springle ships and a lot of demo ships with the Armored Hull as well.
These water upgrades are going to be absolutely crucial in this next fight because the fleet sizes are the same. And we can already see now demos are coming in. And there are some archer ships. Very, very aggressive push here coming out of LucifroN. Not taking his time to snipe these archer ships might prove to be a little bit of an issue here because PuppyPaw is just on point when it comes to sniping these demos.
Yeah, we do also have a dock there with an emplacement providing a lot of damage there as well. Nobi defending the villagers there on food. Oh, these ships are all clumped up. Massive explosion coming in there. All demo ships going down between the two players, but in the end, LucifroN remains with his upgraded navy.
An upgraded navy in this situation matters a lot more than those demo ships, losing them or having them or not. It's the question of PuppyPaw getting to castle at any point. If he doesn't, then he is going to be outgunned on the water side of things here. So PuppyPaw might have to look for some damage on land. Doesn't look like he's actively going for that right now. It's just that water gameplay that's so important. If he loses water, he loses such a massive expansion and all the food that comes with it. And now we do see the castle age being clicked up, and it is the floating gate. Gonna be very important to get the Yudishiro inside production buildings, because it's gotta be some pretty important raids that he can perform with those castle age mounted samurai.
Floating gate coming in now. LucifroN also preparing his own knights. So we might be seeing some knight-on-knight action here rather soon. This is a difficult situation right now because LucifroN, he's up to 15 demo ships, and he also got the range upgrade on his demolition ships, the radius. It's going to be a lot bigger now for these demo ships to do damage. And I think this might be it. This might be it. There aren't a lot of archer ships remaining, just a single one. PuppyPaw once again tries to get them to explode with his own demo ships. Sends them in one by one. But it's just too much demo ships. You can see the bonus radius around them. Fishing ships also getting taken down by them, with a lot of range in between them as well. And now the knights are flooding in from LucifroN. A couple of archers coming in there as well. And just causing idle time on land now, while the water economy from PuppyPaw is all but destroyed.
Economy and military looking to be in favor of LucifroN here. We're seeing this phenomenon that we talked about in the beginning here with the demos, now being able to find these connections now that he's pushed up against land and not having any more water to fall back on. And that is exactly where the demos become so impactful. It's going to be hard for Poppy to get back on water now. In fact, I would say it's pretty much impossible when you're up against someone like LucifroN. So the best thing you can do is actually just to look for something like emplacements, try to force LucifroN's hand, keep him on the water side of things a little bit longer, keep the looming threat of having water still being a part of this game whilst he switches over to something on land.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the timing, though, it's going to be so hard for PuppyPaw to pull this off now if he wants to transition onto land. He's not really actively gathering any stones, so it doesn't look like there's going to be like a second TC coming up anytime soon. And with the amount of demo ships, LucifroN's just able to take down all these docks really quickly, just using the demo ships for it, even keeping them really close to the dock. So if there is like a Springle ship coming out, he's going to immediately have the demo ship right next to it in order to take it down. Some demo ships, so from PuppyPaw, actually gets a huge connection off there. Takes on 4 Springle ships there, but it's still not enough at this point in time.
Look at this absolute massive Shinobi now coming in on this gold. I don't think it's going to be enough against Knights, but it's substantial damage that they're able to push out. Villagers get pulled as well. Might actually be enough to take them out, but holy, they are finding a lot of damage.
Yeah. Looks like behind this, the second TC has come in for PuppyPaw on the wood line. So he's going to be able to at least scale his water a little bit. his economy a little bit on land. We're getting some spearmen now as well from LucifroN against the mostly, well, just the 2 mounted samurai here from PuppyPaw. He is at least getting some relics in. His landmark does provide him with a couple of free Shinto priests.
It's a difficult difficult position to be in for Puppy. He doesn't have relics, although one coming in, and his eco's behind, his military's behind. It's going to be a long road to get back into this game and finding that position with the land eco, potentially outscaling the fishing eco. You know this as well. It's on Holy Island. Eventually, the land eco becomes better than the water eco, but it's a long time from now.
Unless your civilization's name is Roost, then you're fine with water eco long term. Yeah, this is a difficult situation for PuppyPaw to be in now. He's got a lot of food. He needs a little bit more gold. Question is, at this point in time, might be worth to just transition away from the Mounted Samurai. I don't think he can just overwhelm with them. It feels like sometimes when you get like this huge mass of Mounted Samurai, you could even take down something like mass spearmen, mass crossbows. But getting that mass up against an opponent that does have that current water advantage is going to be hard. And LucifroN is going to try and get that relic back, but Mounted Samurai is going to notice.
So that's one less.
Did provide vision.
One less relic for LucifroN, coming in with a really strong economy at the moment. It's looking a lot better than PuppyPaw for sure. Another relic here is going to be picked up by and denied by the fleet.
That's a lot of damage. This one knight just took down 3 villagers there from PuppyPaw. And he's now going into Onabagashas. I don't dislike that play now with the mass Onabagashas. If you can really scale into them, they absolutely destroy spearmen. And with us around, they can also take down knights fairly easily.
Bugashas are certainly strong. They're a good counter to a lot of units once they get massed up. It's the question of whether or not he's able to build that mass at the same time when he has to also provide a lot of food for his TCs to produce villagers. The question is, does he have enough to even get to that stage?
I think he might. He's got 10 mounted samurai out right now, which does force LucifroN into making the spearman. Oh, what's not good though is the reveal. The early reveal on the Onabagashas there. So now LucifroN knows what's going to be coming for him.
Wololo coming in here on the food does actually just defend against that knight here. And that's going to be a little bit of a delay as well. Now we can see units are coming back to defend it. You're absolutely right about the Bugashas being revealed. That's a little bit of a problem because now for LucifroN, he can start to think about a different unit composition that can potentially counter it. Typically, you'll see something like ranged units or just in general, large melee armor type units. So getting the correct upgrades here can also be quite important for sure.
Yeah, Grant LucifroN, he doesn't yet have any melee upgrades, any melee armor upgrades. We saw some Palace Guards in queue for a moment, and looking at the water economy, it doesn't look that great. I'm not sure. Does LucifroN have any eco upgrades on water at the moment? It doesn't feel like it.
I think I saw the nets being researched just before here.
He does have all of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
it just takes a long time. Suddenly he's at 1,200 food per minute again.
Yeah, so his food is not too bad. PuppyPaw is also coming back on the eco front, actually superseding LucifroN's eco at this stage of the game, which is kind of peculiar to me. He does have 3 relics, and the Bugashas are now going to find damage on land. This is actually a pretty good position for Puppy.
Yeah, he's on all of the production buildings, and the production just came in a little bit too late for LucifroN here, potentially. He's getting a lot of Palace Guards out now. Palace Guards, though, don't have as much armor as normal men-at-arms, so the Onabagashas do trade out a little bit more favored than they would normally do. And only the first melee armor upgrade is in queue now, so this still is going to take a while for it to get researched. There's no supervision on that blacksmith at the moment. And it's over 30 on a Bagasha.
It's over 30 on a Bagasha, so albeit not being the most expensive unit and LucifroN running Palace Guards and Knights, that's still similar military count, and that matters a lot once you start to see these snowball effects of having so many Bagashas. These Palace Guards are not going to be able to hold up against it.
Yeah, just look at those Bagashas absolutely just slaughtering the Palace Guards here in the front line, and with this many units, you also get a lot of torch damage, with which you're able to take down the outpost that LucifroN has just now gotten up. Mounted Samurai also coming in. Gonna be able to tank up some of that arrow fire. It's more villagers that are going to be going down here. And yeah, I think PuppyPaw, he can take this fight if he wants to. He's got a Katana Bannerman somewhere as well if he just gets that forward.
It's a scary position for sure. Bugashas are going to be able to do damage here, but it's also starting to be a sizable army for LucifroN. And so once you have these big armies up against each other, the Bugashas aren't going to be as effective. But of course, as the mass builds up and builds up, you want to take these fights against smaller groups.
I mean, right now he's giving LucifroN the time to research the melee armor upgrades. There's still one in queue. This fight he's going to take, and it's still looking like a really good fight here for them. Surround even comes in with the Onabugashas. Katana Bannerman Aura still active.
It was very clever what PuppyPaw did there. He took a few units, he pulled the Mounted Samurai, and then forced a bunch of LucifroN units to go after them. And now the Bugashas managed to get a smaller group to deal with, potentially getting a better fight here.
Potentially a better fight, but still doesn't look as optimal. The reinforcements just trickling in one by one, and the reinforcements for PuppyPaw, they're taking their sweet time. They're getting regrouped somewhere else. Behind this, though, switch to the Samurai, which do a lot of bonus damage.
I'm not quite sure which position I like the most here. LucifroN certainly has water, but looking at PuppyPaw's income at the moment, his eco is scaling. He's getting there.
Yeah, it's the berries right now. He's getting all the upgrades on the berries. He's just gathering up the berries like at lightning speed. He's getting so much fruit from them. This is a map as well where there's a very, very good amount of berries. And now these samurai, they're just storming through here. We're now getting crossbows as well. Definitely are going to be needed against the samurai. And looks like LucifroN is able to hold, albeit it's a very close one.
It's a massive investment into defensive emplacements here. Something that can be very good in these situations, but might not scale too well for him should he look to do counter damage. And currently, there's not really an opening for him to do that because PuppyPaw is putting on so much aggression. I'm not quite sure how he gets out of this situation because it seems to be unstoppable.
Right now, it's just more and more production. We actually have the Shogunate Castle by PuppyPaw, so he's getting a lot of food from his farms right now. And the samurai, they're kind of overwhelming at the front line here. Granted, crossbows are doing a lot of damage to the mounted samurai, able to take them down one by one. But the reproduction rate is kind of crazy here from PuppyPaw, able to keep this up in the production, like right next to the production buildings from LucifroN. But the crossbow mass is building, and they're starting to be able to one-shot those units.
Once the crossbow mass is up and running, it's going to be quite difficult to run these armored units against it. And so now that he's going into samurai, again, he might afterwards look to go Bugashas just to keep that transition between the compositions going, forcing LucifroN to play into unfavorable composition matchups.
And this is such a difficult position for LucifroN to be in right now. It feels like he's making all the right units, but still PuppyPaw is just pushing it in deeper and deeper every single time. Look at LucifroN with the water economy, also on the side of PuppyPaw. That's where he expanded behind this as well. He's getting a lot of economy through the water. But it feels so difficult because just so much of his economy is just idled by the pure presence of PuppyPaw.
It's a phenomenal display here coming out from PuppyPaw. Just able to come back on land like this is already in of itself a pretty big feat.
He's 3,000 food per minute. He's doing it. I didn't think this would be possible here in this one, but PuppyPaw just... It felt like the transition was a little bit slow there as well. Like to the Onabugashas, to the Samurai. But it looks like the timing was just right for him for, to get this big mass up. Now, it looks like the military numbers are fairly similar between them, but that's just because LucifroN, he still has roughly like 20 pop worth of boats still active.
Yeah, and these boats are not as effective as an economy such as PuppyPaw's at this stage of the game. You got to remember all of the eco bonuses that Japanese are fitted with. Shogunate Castle being one of them. Reaching that stage of the game for the Japanese is quite important, and once you have reached it, your economy just snowballs so quickly.
We're actually getting to that point, to that Japanese late game now. The Onabugasha doing great there as a meat shield. The Barbican doesn't really provide a lot of defense there. Doesn't provide a lot of damage, at least. Crossbows are able to pretty much one-shot every single unit.
The crossbows are important for sure. A ram coming out now, looking to take out these upgraded towers on this wood line, looking to reclaim some of that. That's a pretty good idea in this situation. You want to sort of push through. You want to sort of move your economy forward. But as he moves his economy more and more forward, PuppyPaw also has a closer and closer target.
Hands of Wololo coming in. For some of the Brigacious back, but now we're up to almost 60 Brigacious again against a mostly crossbow-oriented army from LucifroN. This next push, together with the Mangonel as well, could actually end LucifroN here, who so far looked absolutely dominant on this map.
And this is exactly what we talked about before, getting into Samurai, forcing crossbows, and now switching back to the original composition, which was Brigacious. This could prove to be what ends this game.
Tide coming in from LucifroN. Wants to get into those choke points between his production buildings. The Brigacious, though, they do have a good bit of bonus range. It doesn't necessarily look like it, but they actually have more range than the Abbasid Spearmen, so they're able to attack from a lot further away.
Yeah, and that's the characteristic of this unit, being able to be grouped up and then have all the units almost be able to fight immediately. There's not a lot of pathfinding issues with this unit. Looking to find even more damage here on the gold. The numbers are looking in favor for PuppyPaw, and the eco is starting to get very much in his favor as well.
Yeah, the ships, they just can't keep up at this stage of the game. Sure, LucifroN has all the upgrades, and it's kind of impressive how the fish are able to like somewhat keep up with a long-term land economy at this point in time. But this just continuous pressure from PuppyPaw makes it so tough for LucifroN to hold, and now a lot of villagers here on gold are going to go down. Mangonel trying to get some good shots in. Good micro by LucifroN, able to dodge most of the shots, but now a second Mangonel coming in. There's some Springles coming in now as well, so LucifroN's going to be hard-pressed when it comes to making counter siege. And he did go for the Imperial Palace, so he does not have the option of getting Clock Tower Siege out at this stage of the game.
Yeah, we go back to that initial idea of, okay, should we have gone for Clock Tower, or was Imperial Palace really necessary? You're playing Holy Island, most of the economy is going to be pretty predictable to find, and the Clock Tower could have been immense value right now. Having to go into either constructing that landmark now or adding in a workshop, that doesn't feel very good in this situation.
Villagers getting pulled on the siege. Still some great Mangonel hits coming out on those crossbows. That's a lot of villagers that did just go down. Crossbows at least are going to be able to clean up a little bit here for the time being. The main issue behind this is that this is not just a one-off army. PuppyPaw has the constant income to keep this up.
And that income will continue to be in a pretty good spot as this game goes on. But we are also seeing how that fishing economy is just not quite able to keep up. It has supported it for a long time, which I find to be pretty impressive, honestly. But at this stage of the game, the land eco is superior. I'm
thinking right now of what LucifroN needs. He is making Palace Guards again, which definitely are going to help him here as a frontline. Because PuppyPaw, he stopped making Samurai. Now we're also getting Jugunu in the mix, which is questionable. Just considering LucifroN, he's got no wood income at all. He's not going to be able to make Jugunu.
Yeah, Shugunu is going to be difficult for sure.
He's getting veterancy on them. He wants to make him. He just needs more wood then.
If he looks to go into Shugunus, he's going to have to secure that wood line, which is what he's been trying to do now for a while. He started making the ram before, was not able to take it down. So a full wood denial here is...
He still has wood in the back.
Does he still?
Yeah, there's still a ton of wood in the back.
I wonder what the issue is actually then. Maybe he's going to look to find some more wood a little bit later here, but I'm not sure how big of a big part of his economy is actually water eco.
Definitely a lot. And you could just tell, like, whenever PuppyPaw is able to secure a couple of these berries, just how his, like, food income immediately skyrockets. It's so crazy. Like, when you get all the wheelbarrow upgrades on the Japanese villagers, they gather up berries like there's no tomorrow. 75% bonus gather speed on that, I think it is.
It's a sizable income here. Still taking skirmish fights here in front of the base. Still looking to make that ram as well. Just not able to. And Trapson now taking down these forward emplacements. LucifroN wants find a way to sort of start taking down the PuppyPaw's emplacements. it's just not going to be possible because he's losing his own.
3 mangonels able to do significant damage to these man-at-arms now. I think we kind of talked about it on our way to King of the North, that mangonels, like, you just need 3 of them. You're able to reduce, like, even men-at-arms to, like, 10% of their health with a shot.
It's like when you have that, like, 5, 6, 7 mangonels, then there's not really any unit that can stand in your way anymore. You're starting to one-shot large groups, which is exactly what's happening in this game. Large groups of range units and even melee.
And I can keep up now in order to secure some more resources. It's gonna give him some more access to stone, gold, as well as a couple of berries here. But Siege Push from PuppyPaw, there's no answer at the moment for LucifroN. His Palace Guard number is also dwindling at this point in time. And he's gonna need a lot of Palace Guards if he wants to get past the Samurai. And we're getting an Imperial Age Castle of the Crow now in the middle of the map. LucifroN, I'm not sure if he can keep up with that. If you can go to Imperial Age, because now we're going to be seeing some bombards coming in soon, and then the base from LucifroN, it's under free fire.
LucifroN doesn't have access to gold as far as I'm concerned. And
he does have next to the keep. He's got 4,000.
He's got 4,000. That's not really going to be enough, though, to scale into Imperial Age at this stage of the game.
At least it's going to be very difficult. PuppyPaw with the Castle of the Crow also securing an 8k in the middle of the map. Granted, he's getting supervised gold there, so it's going to be at least 20% more. Doesn't feel like it's enough. 5 mangonels without any anti-siege from LucifroN.
And you can't really tech into Siege at this stage of the game either, due to the fact that PuppyPaw is not going to be able to make Springles himself, get roller shutter triggers, adding extra range on his Springald, and then LucifroN can just completely drop it when it comes to contesting Siege with Siege.
Mass outpost and the mangonels able to defend here. A couple of units able to catch up to the mangonels, but it's only so few, and the Castle of the Crows is also helping out there. Lots of crossbows going down there, and LucifroN's army just can't put a dent in what PuppyPaw has here on the front line. It's all gone. It's all gone now. PuppyPaw's done it. He's come back. He's come back in this game.
It's very impressive at this stage that you can actually be able to get back even though you have lost water, and it just goes to show you the immense skill of a player like PuppyPaw. He also understands now that at this stage of the game, well, there it already is. He was pushing with emplacements, and those emplacements are what your army is essentially made of once you're pop capped.
Yeah, and with that, PuppyPaw able to build on that lead. Now 2-0 in a series on a map that LucifroN picked, and that's arguably one of the best maps for him here. And PuppyPaw just looking absolutely dominant in this one, even having more food, though LucifroN's been on water the entire time.
Yeah, and that again sparks a little bit of a debate of how important is water again on a map like Holy Island. We talked about it having such a high skill gap to play this map, and it can be quite difficult to do something once you have lost water. But ultimately, if you can come back on land, that it will be stronger.
Well, I think it sparks an even bigger debate, boys. If LucifroN can't win on the map that he's pegged to be dominant on, what hope has he got here? Because PuppyPaw, I think, is eclipsing everyone's expectations. That game number 2 was absolutely absurd. I mean, I think it'd be fair to say, usually when we look at Holy Island, the civ that makes land transitions work there, Crackety, is actually meant to be the Chinese.
Yeah, the Chinese definitely one of those civilizations where you get that Song Dynasty, you get another TC in, suddenly you can reboom at a speed that not a lot of civilizations can match. Maybe arguably the HRE, they can match it once they get that Swabia up. That not a lot of civilizations can do that.
I think the cool thing to see there, Voldemar, is the way that PuppyPaw utilized this kind of oppressive timing of the Japanese and remained relentless, right? Like, you know, as someone who's played quite... Actually, I just realized I've got basically a whole panel of Chinese aficionados here. As someone who's played a lot of China, I think it's fair to say you need a few minutes to breathe, right? It's very difficult when this relentless pressure keeps coming in.
Absolutely, and it's also one of the first things that Crackety taught me. So if you don't know, Crackety was my coach back then, Chinese being one of the first civilization I was getting into. Just understanding how important wood was, and in this game, how that played out. He lost access to his front wood, got pushed to the back, and then later on in the game, just not having a super easy access to wood, being raided a lot on the back line, the front line being completely cut off, was pretty big deal for him.
I'm wondering if he was going for a timing attack, Crackety, right? Like that's the only thing I think of for the Imperial Palace is that he wanted to scout because that new buff kind of made the vision OP. That would let you see the initial transition and then maybe hit a timing. But it felt like PuppyPaw didn't give him any breathing room to utilize that whatsoever. Kind of makes you wonder if he had time to go back, would he have taken that clock tower instead?
Yeah, I guess Clock Tower definitely would have helped him there on the defensive. But it's as you said, like LucifroN, he wasn't expecting to be on the defensive there. The opposite. He was expecting himself to be the one to like close out the game then after winning water.
And now he finds himself fully on the defensive. Although this is the upper bracket, you don't want to be going down this earlier. Brutal occurrence here. We're heading into Socotra next. English versus Malians, a matchup that historically has looked pretty good for the Malians. As we all know, Socotra is a different kind of beast. The question mark is whether the king of this map can make the dub happen or if PuppyPaw is going to make it a brutal 3-0 with an opener like this.
We're jumping right into it as PuppyPaw pulls all of his villager and goes for an early board play. Now, this is something that other civilizations can't really punish. I want to say that, but there's a very low health villager now. 2 very low health villagers. One went down. The other one might go down as well. PuppyPaw's already losing his villagers here. 2 villagers down just 40 seconds into the game.
It is the most bad thing that could actually have happened to him during this boar pull is losing just 1 villager to the boar, but a second one as well to the scout is not what you want to happen. This effect of having lost 2 villagers this early will snowball so much during the early game here that playing against Malians, that's already an unfavorable matchup. This boar and being contested in the middle, the road into feudal age looks so grim.
Now, a boar is an excellent source for food, but it's not that great that you want to sacrifice 2 villagers for that. PuppyPaw, this is gonna hurt him a lot. I can't I can't overstate just how much this is gonna hurt him here, because this is also gonna mean that his transition to feudal age is gonna be incredibly slow. I'm speaking like a 40-second delay. Like usually, like English, they might be going up at like 4 minutes into the game, ideally. This might be like a 5-minute age up.
I'm not sure. I honestly, it's so rare that we see people lose a few villagers early like this, and it's gonna delay him way more than he can currently afford. This matchup is notoriously difficult for the English because you're typically gonna run something like longbows.
What's he doing?
And if you're looking for something like a longbow push
He's
here,
mad. PuppyPaw's mad. What's he doing? The 4 villagers, he just pulled them. I think he wanted to take the sheep or kill the scout or something. But it's a lot of idle time. PuppyPaw, yeah, I think he's already like kind of taking a note on this game. He's like, okay, not a good start. Not a good start. Maybe I can make something happen, but this is looking rough. Look at the food that he's got. He's got 1 food in the bank right now. LucifroN's about to click up to the next age.
surely gonna be a fine timing for LucifroN here. PuppyPaw not even close, and so something like a longbow push is not even in the cards here.
Yeah, 100% not going to be an option there for him. Manzaquari is going to be coming in now for LucifroN, and in a matchup that's already favored for the Malians due to being like javelin thrower versus longbow when it comes to like the unique units, definitely in favor of the Malians there. This is going to be very, very rough for PuppyPaw to hold on to. He can't stay in the middle for long either. He's going to have to move away sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's difficult. He has to go into the king. An extra 50-second delay on getting the king out in the first place makes it so difficult to do anything like a second TC. So I don't really... I have a hard time visualizing where he's going to take this. Obviously, you can look to play second TC in this matchup, but I'm afraid that if LucifroN tries something like Feudal Aggression, he's going to be overwhelmed.
This might be a fast castle into GG. Potentially here. Yeah, PuppyPaw is looking in a rough spot now. This game did not start the way that he intended.
Yeah.
What can he really do now in this situation? Sure, like Abbey of Kings, that kind of like signifies that he... Oh no, he's sending villagers out to Sun. Is going to be a 2 TC play. I think LucifroN's going to see that. He's just going to... Yeah, he sees it immediately. He sees it immediately. That's just going to be an immediate all-in sign for him. That he can just all-in.
This game actually becomes oh so simple now for LucifroN. Having that early delay and going into full units now provides him with such a large timing, much larger than you would see normally for pushing something like an expansion. And a second TC expansion is gonna be too late here, I think.
Gonna be very slow because now the first javelin throwers, they're pretty much already like halfway out on the field. And by the time that PuppyPaw starts placing the TC, they could already be upon him. Issue is that, okay, sure, that's going to be the king. But if the king comes out at a point in time where LucifroN already has like 5-6 javelin throwers out, he's going to be able to deal with the king as well. And not just that, he's getting Dunzes out as well. The barracks is coming in.
Yeah, a few Donzos, a few javelins, and this king coming out 50 seconds after the age up. And you have to remember, PuppyPaw is still aging up. He's 2/3 of the way at the moment. Might get up before 6 minutes. King might come out at 7 minutes. And we're 5 minutes into this game and he's already being pressured. I'm not quite sure how he's actually going to be able to get out of this very, very tough situation.
Yeah, PuppyPaw, he's not going to get the stone. He can't get the stone now. There's no way for him to get the stone. Donzo already in queue. Second javelin throw out there. There's no way. There's no way. PuppyPaw, he might have to just try and fast castle.
But how is he going to
I
fast
don't see
castle?
another option.
Like he might have the gold on the back, but still no military.
This is the master plan. He's got 100 stone in the bank. That's enough for 2 emplacements, but instead I see 4 villagers moving out to another stone. This... If that gets spotted, that's going to be even more idle time, and the question is, even if he is able to get a second TC going, where would he put it? Realistically, with the javelin throwers being right at his front door.
I don't know, like you typically want it on the gold and then you want to start getting farms up, but you have so little wood on this map anyways, so that style is pretty much just fully denied.
Yeah. LucifroN spots the one production building coming out. Now it's going to be an archer range, so mass archers, mass longbows for PuppyPaw doesn't feel great against the mass javelin throws, especially when you're starting off in a situation where you're behind in numbers from the get-go.
Behind in numbers, behind in timing. King does come out now. Dunzos are going to be there, and that's going to be a tough army. It's already 10 army at this point, and 1 king is not going to be enough to even deal with that, even with healing.
Yeah, and LucifroN, he can just play this slow and steady. Already has a second pit mine pretty much fully kitted out, so lots of passive gold income for him now at this point in time. Could get some cattle in, or actually just push it all in, get some blacksmith upgrades, go for ram, and start taking down some of these buildings.
Have to put yourself into the shoes of LucifroN. You can't afford to play too risky because you're 0-2. It's match point. Yeah. If you lose this game, you've lost the set and you're out of the qualifier. But this game, there's a big margin for and a lot of room for error. I think like someone like LucifroN is not going to be putting himself too much in danger, but he can afford to do that actually in this game.
He just needs to keep being active. That's the most important thing. And he's about to see the stone. He's about to see the stone. Able to kill the scout. And he sees the villagers walking back. Does PuppyPaw have stone in them? Are they carrying stone?
I don't think they are, but he did something very smart. He pulled away from that top stone, and on the other stone, he then pulled a few wood villagers.
All right, so he is at least going to be able to get the stone required for that second TC. King goes down, though. That hurts. That is not something that you want to lose, and villagers on the farms might actually be exposed because these javelin throws, they do have a good amount of range. Second TC is coming in.
And remember that the javelins have ranged armor as well. Standing under a TC here isn't actually the biggest deal. Longbows do a considerable amount of damage, but there's not enough longbows here to deal with this. This TC might go up, but he might also lose either villagers or military or both.
Yeah. And this is a rough one. Very much is. I mean, this actually wasn't that bad of a trade against the javelin throwers. Is able to at least force them out for the time being. Front's getting more javelin throwers in. They're just not there right now, and he's lacking the blacksmith upgrades to really take the greatest fights here. Kind of just throwing this one away in order to get the Dunzos out. So they're going to be able to trade out evenly at least. 2 for 2. A couple of these javelin throws are just stuck at the mill.
Production buildings are being added by LucifroN now. Might go into full javelin spam here. Do you think he's going to try to take out the second TC, or is he just going to try to contain this longbow mass and then go full cattle, or even Farimba?
I think it's going to be all in. I think probably the next upgrade might be siege engineering. No, okay, it's going to be +1 pierce damage. Maybe the next one after that is going to be siege engineering, but I think it has to be something very aggressive. Like, he can't afford to not punish this, I want to say.
Yeah, you have such a big tempo advantage at this moment with the TC going up at 9 minutes. And we can just see how those 2 villagers early, losing them just caused such a massive snowball effect that, you know, this game is considered over. PuppyPaw still sees a way out of this, one would assume. And that would be the second TC managing to stay up for enough time to give him his eco lead back.
Yeah. There it is. Oh, he already had siege engineering. Okay, so that already came in. Double ram now coming in as well. There's not a lot that PuppyPaw can really do about this now. Like, double ram should definitely be able to take out that second TC with more javelin throwers than longbows. I mean, you only need like 7 javelin throwers in order to start one-shotting these villagers as well.
Yeah, so if he does decide to, and I know that someone like LucifroN would do that, split his javelins up, he would be able to take out 2 longbows per round here. Villager almost goes down. Rams are now coming in on this bottom palisade. Gonna go into the blacksmith. Losing the blacksmith here is actually a pretty big deal because he's currently getting +1 ranged attack, and LucifroN has +1 ranged armor, and without the +1 ranged attack, your longbows cannot deal with javelins at all.
Textiles now coming in. We might be looking at a villager pull sooner rather than later here with textiles on the menu. Oh, he's trying to repair. Wants to get the upgrade in. It's not coming in. It is not coming in. More villagers going down with it as well. Once again, population count has been evened out.
A little bit of micro out on the TC here with the villagers. Going to be able to maybe take down the rams. Longbows are struggling against these javelin throwers. Not going to be able to even like 3 or 4 shot it. It's super tough at this stage of the game.
Villagers jumping out. Trying to take down some of these rams. A couple more villagers getting pulled now in order to start repairing. Javelin numbers have gone down a bit so far. I think PuppyPaw's done a good job so far of just always staying a little bit outside of the range of the javelin throws, so he didn't lose too many longbows for the most part. TC also doing a not so bad job. That should be 1 ram going down. Not quite. Very low health on both though.
Rams are definitely low health here. As you mentioned, PuppyPaw actually able to keep his longbows alive, though they are going down, so it's going to be tough. Rams do go down, however, and so he does get more time. He's got that eco lead, one would think, but you got to remember LucifroN. Yeah, round 2 coming through here. Got to remember he's got the 2 pit mines, and he's not really committing to cows, I would say.
Yeah, he's got a lot of wood in the bank, considering that other than the rams, none of his units that he really wants to be making right now cost wood, so I would have expected maybe this to be 4 cattle ranches, but instead it might just be more, either more production buildings or more rams, but I don't see any more rams being dropped. Did just lose a lot of wood, so maybe more production buildings just came in.
Might be more production buildings. One would assume that an economy like this would be centered around cow production and just scaling up behind it. I'm a little bit afraid that LucifroN might tunnel vision this, so he needs to find the damage if he wants to proceed with his strategy. Ram getting denied slightly, but he's losing villagers because of it. 11 villagers now down, still at equal economy, but with the passive income from the pit mines on the back line, I don't really think that PuppyPaw is ever going to be able to get this eco build up through the second TC.
Second TC once again in danger. Villagers are getting pulled for the repair. Needs to start taking down the rams though. Villagers are already under fire now. Rams getting taken down. Still 1 ram remaining. And now the TC's on fire. Has to pull the villagers again.
Villagers getting pulled again. King is in production, got 4 longbows in queue. Just sitting at about 5 longbows right now is enough to take out the Donzos, but against like 13 javelins, that's a really rough one, because every time you try to do damage to the javelins, they one-shot you.
Yeah. Every single time. Villager goes down, and now PuppyPaw's down 6 villagers with the second TC. Oh, that's the production that he switched into. 4 stables came out, and LucifroN's about to hit Castle Age. At a point in time where PuppyPaw is just struggling to stay alive.
It's a nice timing that he might be able to get through here. Classic Farimba Garrison coming out from LucifroN. This is something that we see quite commonly from the Spanish bros. It can be deadly in a timing like this. You have such a good build-up with this early damage that you've done, and it's not just a little bit of damage, it's 20 villagers and a damaged TC. And at this stage of the game, this is probably going to be the nail in the coffin, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. And going up from 4 Pierce Armor on your javelin throws to 6 Pierce Armor and even more health with Veterancy, those things are going to take even less damage on PuppyPaw. I wouldn't have been surprised if he just called it as soon as the Castle Age came in, but he is going to stick through it. And immediately, Veterancy and +1 Pierce Armor is coming in. First Sofa already in production as well. No Veterancy on them yet, but that's going to come in as soon as he'll have the resource for it.
Absolutely. We talked about this upgrade advantage before from losing the blacksmith and not having that extra +1 ranged armor. Now you're going to be sitting with veterans javelins in your base, and your town centers are not going to do any damage in this situation.
Yeah, King. He's brave. He's charging forward. He's going to lose his life for it.
It's a big ouchie. 200 resources going down. Now villagers are going to be one-shot here from the javelins as well. Such a difficult situation to be in. I'm not sure that he really has a way out.
Archers are coming around as well. There are still no upgrades on the sofa, so they can't charge in quite yet. I mean, the travel numbers are going down, right? Like, it's a lot of arrows. It's a lot of arrows, and you might have good armor, but if your entire body is covered in arrows, you're still probably going to go down just through the sheer weight of the arrow tips there.
Absolutely. You got to remember, though, he is going for a switch in comp. I'm not sure he has imported armor just yet, but he does have +2 ranged armor. So for LucifroN, switching into full sofas will force PuppyPaw to go into spears, potentially just keeping him in feudal age for much longer.
I mean, LucifroN, he does have the Farimba Garrison, right? So he can still make those javelin throws just with the Farimba Garrison if he invests gold into it, and then use all of his remaining resources into sofas.
Yeah, that is true. The Farimba will be able to produce javelins. That's okay. I mean, you got to just be able to pump as much as you can. At this stage of the game, I think whatever unit, whether it's javelins or sofas, he just got to be able to do this damage continuously.
Yeah. And now I think LucifroN at this point in time, he's in a position where he's now sitting under PuppyPaw's TC. Earlier, he was just poking in and out, like around the TCs. Now he's firmly set under the TCs, and he's probably not going to move out from this position anymore in this game.
Little bit afraid that LucifroN is being a little bit too careless here with his units. Not going to be able to pull up with a larger sofa mass just yet. He does have 14 javelins. So in the end, if the longbow mass gets too great, it's going to be not necessarily trouble, but a little bit more difficult, though the longbow mass goes down. And ultimately, PuppyPaw does give up.
And that means that LucifroN now has a box to check on the scoreboard and is potentially setting himself up for a reverse sweep. That could definitely still be an option here. We see this game where literally everything fell apart for PuppyPaw. It's kind of similar to how the second game went, except there was still a big comeback that happened for PuppyPaw. LucifroN, this one, definitely not allowing for that to happen. And I think he's going to have to play the next one, a little bit more careful as well, because PuppyPaw is still on match point. And we're going to see which map awaits us now in game number 4. And it's going to be Frisian Marshes, and we see China versus French. This isn't that bad of a matchup for the French, I want to say.
That's a common debate. Is French into Chinese good? And I think it sort of depends on the map and so on, because you do have hand cannons as Chinese, super good at dealing with these army units. But on a map like Frisian Marshes, you're also able to stay in your base longer. I'm not quite sure who this favors.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, right? Because on a map like Frisian Marshes, you have a lot of food. That is absolutely great for the French. You're able to produce a lot of these very expensive units, a lot of these knights. And when you have a lot of the knights, like at one point, you might just be able to completely overwhelm the Chinese. The Chinese, they're a little bit of like a slow starter at times. And sure, they got like great defensive capabilities with the hand cannon placements, but if you're able to hit them at the timing when they need to maybe do like a farm transition or when they need to move out onto the map for fish, depending on like how many sheep they find early on, that is where they can struggle. And it's these kind of timings that LucifroN is just known to be really good at exploiting. And we'll have to see how this one is going to go, because now it's time for game number 4, match point for PuppyPaw. We're going to flip the scores around in just a little bit. And we're here on Frisian Marshes. We're going to be seeing Chinese versus French in action.
I'm wondering what LucifroN is going to look to bring out here. He is going to play French into Chinese, and so the standard all-in might be an option with this reduced distance between the bases on a map like this. But he also has options to go into trade through the Chamber of Commerce, and just in general play for second TC himself if he wants to. French in the late game is certainly not bad. Neither is the Chinese. We talked about it. It might be a balanced matchup. Maybe it favors the French. I'm not quite sure.
LucifroN, he immediately went out with his villagers over to the shoreline, so it's going to get a great amount of early food there from that. Already getting wheelbarrow in as well, so nice opener here for him very early on in the game. Is going to play this one. I feel like this kind of sets him up for like a prolonged kind of feudal point, right? Like he's starting off on the shoreline fish, he's preserving the sheep for when he needs to stay under his base or when he wants to not move out at any one point during the game. And taking them early, like such a great food source early on, just sets you up for such an impressive amount of military units that you're able to flood in the feudal age.
Absolutely. If you go for something like shoreline fish early, provided that they are so close here on Frisian Marshes, you're not going to take that big of a delay from doing such. And getting into the feudal age, you are going to have one of the highest gather rate, if not the highest gather rate for villagers early on. And that means that you can go into more food-heavy units like cavalry units, such as the knights. And even if you decide to go for more archer-heavy stuff, that extra food allows you to put more villagers on the wood because you have such a higher gather rate.
Yeah. Gotta take a quick look and just count how many sheep these players have gathered up so far, because it looked like earlier that PuppyPaw, he got a pretty good line share when it came to the sheep, so we're going to quickly check in with our observer. Looks like PuppyPaw is sitting at 7 sheep corpses, 17 still alive. That's a good number. On the other side, LucifroN, 16 still alive, 2 carcasses, so PuppyPaw overall taking a bigger share there when it comes to the sheep on the map, but not that great of a discrepancy. And now School of Cavalry is going to be coming in for LucifroN. On the other side, Imperial Academy, no big surprise for PuppyPaw. Actually, I'm saying no big surprise, but PuppyPaw is doing the no IO build, which I'm not a big fan of.
It's curious, right? Because you want maybe to have the Barbican early, just to secure your front resources here, now that you're up against such an aggressive civilization like the French. But if he just chooses to not go into the Barbican and play this more 1TC aggression style that we've been seeing from the Chinese, which includes 1 Imperial Academy, no Barbican, and then full units, that could potentially be a big threat here for LucifroN should he lose access to his front resources. And with School of Cavalry this far forward, perhaps even his production.
Yeah, I'm just not a big fan of the no IO opener, mainly because you lose a ton of flexibility. Now, LucifroN isn't going for like a 3-minute 50 age up just because he did get that early wheelbarrow. He did move out onto the shoreline fish, so he's not going to be able to immediately exploit that timing. But still, this feels like a... Actually, it feels like a really bad timing now for PuppyPaw, because not only... He's not going Song Dynasty.
He's not going to go Song Dynasty, which is exactly what I was trying to outline before. I don't think this is bad for him. He might go for tax and get Song Dynasty later, but at this stage of the game, he's saving wood for something different. And I would say, like, this is not a bad position for him necessarily.
I mean, he can't go second TC, right? So he's not going to scale economically, while the French are going to at least get more villagers out. I'm actually really not a big fan of what PuppyPaw is doing right now. Like, if he can't make something happen now early on with his military, it feels like he might just fall further and further behind. Now, he does have the Imperial officials, but if it gets to the point where LucifroN has like 10, 50 knights out on the map, and like a lot of archers with that as well, when it comes to like Jugunu or well, not even Jugunu, but like archers and spearmen, the micro part on like the knight and archer player is just way easier than on the spearman and archer player.
Certainly, it's a good point you make. In the long run, this is more favorable for the French player. That's why PuppyPaw might need to look to do some damage here early. He only has 3 spears out, and LucifroN's already getting his second knight. And now the village going to come through. I'm not quite sure if he has the
TC
tempo.
for LucifroN. Yeah, it looks like we're going to see a second TC from LucifroN, which is going to put even more pressure on PuppyPaw. Like, he's going to have to do something in the feudal age in order to stop that growth coming in.
Something about the French production building placement here is also quite interesting. It's very far forward. It's not together as if you want to play for that long game. It does seem to me that this placement of these buildings signals a more aggressive approach. Don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, LucifroN has the archer range now. PuppyPaw does see that. He's still pushing forward with the spearman, which is interesting, I want to say. Like, LucifroN isn't playing this really quickly. Like, he's not rushing that TC up. He's gathered the stone. Now he's gonna see, okay, my opponent, he's getting like a lot of spearmen out. So I'm in no rush. I don't need to make the second TC immediately. I can get some archers in between, and that's exactly what he's doing now. PuppyPaw now committing with his own archer range as well. Seeing spearman archer now without Song Dynasty for the Chinese.
I'm not sure.
It's going to be interesting if this is going to work out.
I'm not sure. I feel like the second TC for LucifroN could potentially be his #1 mistake here if PuppyPaw finds a timing to take it down. But again, you have high gather rates from the shoreline. You have a safe woodline as well. You're not going to be idled off that necessarily. And as long as LucifroN can sort of keep PuppyPaw in the base, again, it might turn out favorable for him. I'm not sure.
Second TC is now coming in on the shoreline as well, even further boosting up that gather speed that he's going to be getting there. That's 2,000 foot right there with insanely fast gather speed. And LucifroN can now just commit to making military units.
It's better than Boar, right? You got the 2,000 food from Shoreline Fish, which has a similar, if not higher, gather rate than Boar. And so this close to your main TC as well, you're not really putting yourself in too much danger, albeit it's not like within your TC range. Still, it's like very safe.
Yeah, LucifroN keeping tabs on the military movement here from PuppyPaw at all time. And now PuppyPaw, now he's going into Song Dynasty. So very delayed Song Dynasty now for PuppyPaw. It's... How much is it right now for French to produce a villager? 18 seconds or 17 seconds? I think it's still 18 seconds.
Yeah,
and with 2 TC,
same.
It's 15 seconds now going to be for Chinese. 17 seconds, actually. All right, so... Yeah, the Song Dynasty doesn't really make that big of a difference in this matchup in the first place to begin with.
You could say that it's almost kind of necessary to go into Song Dynasty, otherwise you're going to get outscaled naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult because...
What is... I love this. I love this. If this isn't going to get scouted, like, LucifroN's just going to get free gold there for the entire mid-game.
But is he not going to scout it? I'm not sure. Like, it's still quite close.
It's been like the gold mine's been scouted earlier, right? Like, what reason would PuppyPaw have realistically to scout that again?
It's a good question. I mean, potentially LucifroN, I don't think he will make such a mistake such as leading PuppyPaw into that direction. But you got to also remember that is a very narrow line between the two bases, and the gold is not like the top one very far away. This is still close to that typical place where you're going to be fighting, the Stealth Forest.
I definitely like French in this position right now, like having overall the better economy. Now the question is, can Jugunu make the miracle happen? Because we've seen him time and time again, like Jugunu can be absolutely disgusting, just how quickly we miss them. Like, we haven't seen any Jugunu for a while. They're already 10 on the field. It happened within like the last minute or so, where suddenly we have 10 Jugunu out there.
Yeah, you can produce an awful lot of Jugunus as the Chinese, just having those extra officials to boost it up if you want to go for that route, and you can just get so much gold through the tax. It's quite forgiving to go for a unit that costs gold like that. I'm a little bit curious here with the French and their, just in general, the villager consumption, food consumption, just from producing it, because you're going to be spending, what is it, like 200 food per minute per TC, and so I'm not sure if LucifroN can even produce enough military to defend against the push should PuppyPaw opt to go for that.
Yeah, it's slightly less. 200, that's what the Chinese pay, so it's probably more like 180 per. But you do have that better food income from the shoreline fish, which PuppyPaw so far, he hasn't moved out to that to those resources at all. It feels to me like he wants to completely gather up all the resources, all the sheep that he has, and once he's gathered up all of them, he's gonna feel like, okay, now is the timing. Now I got enough military. Now I can push out, move out. Siege engineering has come in. And this might be the point in time now where PuppyPaw might be thinking about pushing for LucifroN space now. 5 knights, the 6th one is going to be in queue, 15 spearmen. Now the archers are going to be able to deal with the spearmen, but if that's what remains, then the knights and the Shuganu, having 30 Shuganu, they can take care of 5 knights. It feels like.
Yeah, I feel like the knights aren't really the big deal here. They're just kind of forcing PuppyPaw to go into spears. The bigger problem is he going to have enough archers to deal with 36 Shuganus and 5 archers at the same time? I'm not sure he will, because all of his production is in the front. He's going to have to produce new buildings in the back. And on top of that, having cancelled out production, that cut right now just gives PuppyPaw an even greater timing.
Yeah, this is going to be really rough now. It's so much military here from PuppyPaw on the front side. Ram is going to be coming in. These couple of knights, and they're keeping some of the military back from PuppyPaw, but that's just going to be wave 2 then. In the end, the archers themselves aren't going to be able to really win this fight out. We got a couple of knights here. Not sure if this is going to be enough, though.
Yeah,
Might just want to go for the charge on the ram, but that's going to come with a lot of losses as well.
It's difficult, right? Because you can have your archers and you have extra range up against the Shuganus, but archer versus Shuganu, it feels favorable for the Shuganu pretty much every time you get into a full-on fight. And so when you're pushed up in a corner, you have to take the fight. And that's where the Shuganus are just so good. When you're full-on offensive and you force a fight, or when you're forced to fight.
Yeah. PuppyPaw, I think he's just about run out of sheep under his TC. Or rather, he is going to run out very, very soon now. We're reaching that timing, 12 minutes into the game now. The ram is now making contact with the TC. Second ram is coming in as well. Knights are getting a good charge off there at the front side. Making sure the spearmen will have to come out to meet them. Battle so far looks to be going in favor of PuppyPaw. Still, military-wise, so far ahead. Knights aren't quite able to be the meat shield here that they need to be. Spearman, good kiting back and forth. And the TC looks to be going down. Yeah, I think LucifroN's going to have to give that TC up. No way that he's going to be able to hold it. Spearman numbers are going down, though. And now the Knights are going to be able to do some damage as well in the front line.
The Knights are doing damage. The Archers, pretty good micro coming out here from LucifroN, able to sustain
They're low
army.
health. Oh, that's going to be a lot of Knights going down with the next couple of volleys. And Knights don't have a lot of health. Still able to act as a pretty efficient meat shield there in the front line. LucifroN pulled more and more villagers over to gold, so now he should be able to at least get a lot more Knights out as well behind this. As long as he has Knights, like right now all the Spearmen are gone, PuppyPaw doesn't have the food income that he needs in order to keep making Jugunu and Spearmen at the same time. He's now moving out with a lot of villagers over to the shoreline fish. That's going to be like the bit of a migration part now here for PuppyPaw, which might buy LucifroN just enough time to keep up with the army count.
He might be able to keep up with the army count, but the question is, did the second TC pay off? Does he have enough villagers to potentially make enough units to defend against this? You have to think, okay, what kind of resources does he need to even make archers? Which is his desirable unit in this situation, because knights are pretty much, he's not going to be able to build up enough mass, I think. Having wood is certainly going to be important. If PuppyPaw decides to go and attack these pocket resources, pushing LucifroN off his food, that's where it gets really difficult, and vice versa.
LucifroN, he's got so much food right now. I feel like maybe even making a couple of horsemen just so you're able to use your resources might be worth it at this point in time. Like, realistically, you're not going to get a lot out of Castle Age at this point in time. Not while there are so many Jugunu right in front of your base. That would probably just set you up for defeat.
Yeah, taking a fight right now versus such a massive Shuganu mass, that's not going to be fun, and it's not going to get more fun down the line. 68 Shuganus and more coming, and this push seems to not really want to stop at this stage of the game, although PuppyPaw's macro does seem to be for Castle Age.
Does have a lot of resource in the bank right now, yeah. Couple of knights coming in here from LucifroN. But there's still so many reinforcements. These knights have to probably go out again. I don't think they can just remain there. And the Jugunu are now pushing over to the shoreline as well. And now they have to... The villagers are going to have to migrate. At least LucifroN, he can make use of the gold right now. Oh, the knights, they're on the shoreline, actually. Getting a good couple of villager kills, killing some Imperial officials.
Yeah, you need that headspace to go and actually do damage to your opponent, because as long as you're the one being pushed and you don't find a way out of a situation like this, you're just going to get stuck in that situation forever. And with a map like Frisian Marshes, those high gather rates matter so much. PuppyPaw running down the line here on the left is going to idle out LucifroN's economy at the same time and going to make it terribly difficult for LucifroN to keep up with the production.
It's insane how behind this PuppyPaw is getting closer and closer to Castle Age. Grant, every now and then, like, that's a lot of villagers right there being idled out by PuppyPaw.
Yeah, it's a good amount of villager damage for sure. Knights are going to go down here to the spears and the Shuganus. It's a tough situation, right? PuppyPaw's army is displaced. LucifroN's going Castle Age.
The first one to go. Yeah, I'm surprised that he's the first one to go up. Yeah, both at the same time now, aging up. And like, sure, LucifroN, he's got the economical advantage still, but PuppyPaw 20 more units right now. And if we're looking at a like mass fight here with veteran Jugunus against veteran archers, the Jugunus are still gonna win. And I'm gonna admit, like, even as a Chinese main, it's incredibly filthy when you see Jugunu against archers, just how those trades are going. Because you need like 14 archers to one-shot a Jugunu. It takes like 6-7 Jugunu to one-shot an archer. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, there's a big power imbalance there for sure. Again, it's where micro becomes so terribly like important. We talked about it before, how that half range, it matters a lot when you're doing skirmishes, but when you're actually taking a big fight, it becomes so much more difficult here. The deer is getting pushed now. Losing villagers here is gonna hurt him.
All the veterancy upgrades are coming in. PuppyPaw only getting veterancy upgrades for his Jugunu. Meanwhile, +2 armor is coming in, as well as veterancy on the archers for LucifroN. But he doesn't have the ability to supervise any of his buildings that are researching. Oh my god, a couple more Jugunu finding more villagers there. And LucifroN, he's been going for these like hidden resources the entire time. And now he has to pay for it, because now he has to deal with that idle time coming in every now and again. And this many Jugunus. With veterancy, he's able to run it in. He's actually just able to run it into the base from LucifroN. Finally, the veterancy upgrade hits for the archers. And now LucifroN's going to have to make something happen. His opponent's under his TC. He can't get a better fight than this.
He can't get a better fight for sure. PuppyPaw's doing something really smart here. He's using the buildings as well to block out the knight pathing, and melee units not really getting their contact. But again, this is so much damage, and PuppyPaw had a good read on LucifroN. Being out of the map, able to push his villagers, has created so much idle time that this fight, even though it might seem balanced, maybe a little bit unfavorable to Puppy, it's still in a really good spot for him.
The economy has almost been evened out behind this now. LucifroN lost a lot of villagers to these stray couple of Jugunu every now and then, and now it's Jugunu against archers, and that's not a fight that you can take it behind that. PuppyPaw going for the mass armored units. There are knights coming in, 6 already on the field with the supervision, just getting them out super fast. And this is in a transition period where LucifroN, he has been pushed off all the external food sources. He has no food left, and that is when the knights are coming in.
Knights come in here to soak a little bit of damage. Micro onto the Shuganus here is going to be quite important, but how are you going to take down the Knights when you simply cannot push out enough damage? Not having enough villagers to even produce gold, food, it's going to be so difficult to get out of this situation.
22 Jugunu remaining. Not that many on the front line, though, and LucifroN able to push back PuppyPaw for the moment. Knights, though, once again finding villagers on these outer resources, and that is where Yeah, LucifroN, he just lost like another 10 villages there. GG gets called. PuppyPaw wins the set 3-1.
Indeed, PuppyPaw takes the set 3-1. That's a powerful display here with the Chinese. We're sort of debating in the beginning whether or not that was going to be enough to go for the no IO opener, but it ended up being enough to create a timing with this second TC and ultimately taking down LucifroN in this match point.
Yeah, and we both talked a little bit about that. That second TC could have turned out to be a mistake for LucifroN. I think in the end it did. Because that timing attack from PuppyPaw, like, he primed his economy for that. If LucifroN just made enough military to not even allow PuppyPaw to go for that move out early on, I think that could have gone very, very differently there.
Definitely. And it's always a question of what opener are you going for? LucifroN went for a shoreline fish opener. You can see he also got up almost at that 430 mark. And that matters a lot here, I think.
Oh, you know, I think of all the things that matter the most, it was a poetic way to end that series, to get PuppyPaw the winning game in this upper bracket. Because when you think about it, they're both sitting on their signature civs. So I just realized that when we hopped into it in the early phases. China, I think it's fair to say at this point, PuppyPaw is just one of the goats for that civ. And LucifroN, probably the roughest time in the history of AoE 4 to be a signature French player. But he tries to do his best here. Remember, folks, lower bracket run still online for LucifroN. We've got to catch him later today, which is going to be intriguing because I believe that is going to be up against Kiljardi. But let's dissect the series a little bit more. You know, I think what we're seeing here, Crackety, is the PuppyPaw we saw at the start of the year. There was some big question marks, and I talked to a few players that Master of Realms wasn't really convincing them that PuppyPaw could be in there to make the deep run. What we saw here today, is that enough to see a player that could very easily be in a castle in the Spain later this year?
It could very well be. PuppyPaw right now looking absolutely fantastic here. Some a little bit like obtuse play there with the no IO opener there into the just mass of units that I didn't quite expect, but he in the end just went for like a delayed all-in Jugunu push, which did work out against the second DC. Overall, PuppyPaw just looking very, very solid here with his decision making.
Voldy, can we finally admit Jugunu may need to be nerfed?
It's a good question. I think Archers into Shuganu showed to be quite powerful here. I'm not sure. Shuganu nerf. I think French.
Maybe an Archer buff.
An Archer buff. I'm not sure.
Are we like deep in an Archer meta already?
Maybe a specific Archer buff. Give them bonus damage specifically against Jugunu.
Crackety, you know, you just basically said, I want every civ to counter my civ.
I